Absolutely no mitigation at all. I don't try to treat it. Yeah,
Oh, no.
we ought to get a little, we ought to be able to do some infiltration.
Yeah.
Plant some trees. We've got more than enough parking spots, right?
Yeah.
We can use some of that.
Yeah, that's all. I agree. There's This looks like the park was redoing, you know, and moving, let me move this over the heater and this over the here.
Right. Yeah. Great.
Everybody ready?
Ready
We'll call this meeting to order, Southern Shores Planning Board, July 19, 2021. You all stand and say the pledge with me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Going down the agenda, we've got to elect officers for the following year. Wes, could you pull up the terms of, might want to read those out.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Ed Lawler, term valid until June 23rd, June 30th, 23. Linda Burek, June 30, 2022, excuse me. Robert McClendon was just reappointed June 30, 2024. Is his term expiration. Chairperson Ward, your term was also just reappointed 6/30/2024. Tony DiBernardo, 6/30/2022. Both alternate member Jan Collins and the vacant alternate position, those terms are valid until 2024, June 30. ETJ Representative John Finelli, his term is also valid 2024, and that's a county appointment.
Right. Okay, thank you. Well, I will open the floor for nominations for chairman first, and then we'll do vice chairman.
Okay, I'd like to nominate Andy Ward as chair.
I'll second.
Any others? Well, then we'll vote on that motion or that nomination. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None seen. Guess I'm the new chair, or the old chair.
Still the chair.
A comfortable chair.
I would like to, moving on to vice chair, I would like to nominate Tony DiBernardo for vice chair.
I'll second.
Thank you, Linda. Any others? Then we'll vote on Tony DiBernardo for vice chair. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? All right. Has everyone had a chance to look at the May 17 amendments? I mean,
Minutes.
excuse me, minutes.
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Anybody catch anything? These were pretty thorough, I thought. I couldn't even find a typo.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, we need to approve the agenda.
Oh, I'm
Approve
sorry.
of the agenda. Yes, sir. No problem.
Always get caught. Could I get a motion to approve tonight's agenda before we move on?
So moved.
Ed, I'll second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? Okay. Scratch that off my list, Wes. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's move on to the minutes again. Did anyone note any corrections that needed to be brought forward?
No, I thought they were pretty thorough,
Yeah.
same as you.
Yeah, they were, I couldn't even find a typo. Okay, if no one has a correction, could I get a motion to approve the May 17, 2021 minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Linda.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Tony. All in favor of approval of the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? All righty. Then next order of business is public comment period number 1. Wes, do we have anybody signed up?
that I'm aware of, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. There is no old business on the agenda, so we're going to jump over to new business. The first order of business is the site plan amendment that Aston Properties is proposing. And Wes, can you just give us a brief overview of what we may be hearing tonight?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This is a request from Aston Properties. The development entails demolishing the western end of the same portion of the group development that includes Food Line. It's where Vidant and the medical offices were formerly located. Those structures would be demolished and 2 new structures would be built. And one of them would be a 24,000 square foot building. The other would be 6,000 square foot. The 24,000 square foot building, according to the plans that have been submitted, would be the 6,000 square foot would be vacant. And then and these, unfortunately, we weren't able to have them posted on the website. But what you have here in your packets, it shows that the 24,000 square foot is Marshall's. The development also involves redevelopment, reconfiguration of the existing parking area out in front of that section. That's my explanation at this point, Mr. Chairperson. We have not compiled a staff report at this time. I believe Karen Partee, who's here with Aston Properties, would like to say a few words and see if y'all have any questions. And then later on, when it's appropriate, we will prepare a staff report.
Great. Well, would you introduce Ms. Partee?
Yes, this is Ms. Karen Partee, Aston Properties.
Good evening, Karen.
Good
Nice
evening.
to see you.
Thank you, Wes. Thank you, Chairman Ward and the board. As Wes said, Aston Properties is the owner of Marketplace at Southern Shores. We purchased the center back in 2014. We knew then that the center needed a good bit of redevelopment to sort of right size it. We've been working towards that end. And a couple years ago, we're presented with an opportunity, as Wes said, to put in a Marshall's. It's taken quite a while to get the deal pulled together, but we now do have a signed lease with Marshall's for that space. And we are working on a national soft goods retailer for the 6,000 square feet, but we don't have that far enough along for me to talk about who that might be. We feel like this will be a great opportunity to put this center back right size. The small shops have been far too many for the anchors that are in the building. And it's hard to keep small shops leased, particularly in this market where the population is sort of seasonal. So we feel like this is going to be a good improvement for the center, and it will attract more small shops into the center. So hopefully we fill up the rest of the vacancy. As Wes said, the plan is to demolish the shops to the left of CVS all the way to the break, and that's where the Marshalls and the other tenant would be built. We are working with the rehab to relocate into one of the vacancies on the other wing that would remain. We had hoped to come here tonight and do a full presentation and hopefully seek your approval for this, but we're still working with staff to get a few things ironed out and wanted to have a more fully vetted plan to present to you so we didn't waste your time on that. But in reaching out, which we've done successfully in other municipalities, we sort of reached out to the board hoping to get a little back and forth with you to understand what concerns you might have so we could address them. And we quickly heard that you guys would prefer to discuss it in this format. So that's why I asked Wes for just a moment of time tonight to talk about this and just find out if there's anything that we should roll into our presentation for next month so that we can get all the questions on the table and answered. Unfortunately, once you sign a lease with a tenant like this, you have a very fast timeline to get everything done. And we're under the gun to have our zoning approvals, our site plan approvals in a very, very short window. So I wanted to be sure that I was prepared as possible. So I will be glad to answer any questions you might have now. I'll also be here after the meeting if you wanted to do it in a less official way.
Go ahead, Tom.
I have a question on sustainability. What are your plans for that? I've looked at the plans and I have noticed that there doesn't seem to be much sustainability. You're moving lights, you're adding a light. I'm going to just throw the questions out. Are these going to be solar that you're moving and adding? Is the concrete looks like it's the standard concrete? It's not the type of concrete that helps with runoff, the absorbing. One or the other, are you using solar at all? Looking into the future, do you have any plans? I'm throwing these all out so you might be able to answer them. And also, what about a charging station? I think that would help you as well as the community if you had a charging station located there. That would actually help Marshall's probably and the other stores. So all these are, this is looking for the future for sustainability. And I didn't see anything in the plans, although I'm not real good at reading plans, I'll be honest with that. I went cross-eyed looking at them. But, is there any plans for this? That's it.
Are you looking for feedback now, or do you want that as part of my presentation next month?
Well, if you give us feedback now, at least we'll have an idea what's coming next month.
Okay.
Maybe you could touch on the high points.
Yeah, just the high points. I don't need specifics.
Yeah.
15 questions.
Yeah, I asked you a lot of questions, but it all boils down to one thing: sustainability and the future.
So we do not have any plans to do solar. Our tenants require a certain light level within the parking lot under their leases. And so we did several years ago go in and replace all the metal halide lights with LEDs so that we have good consistent light levels. But solar can't be relied upon to the degree that a tenant is going to require. As a matter of fact, we just finished an exercise of trying to determine whether or not we could light a monument sign in one of our municipalities by solar. And it was a non-starter, just because electricity was going to be very difficult to get it there. And we really wanted it to work, but it's just not going to work as a long-term solution. You can't count on it. And we wouldn't want to be responsible if a security issue happened as a result of poor lighting. So that's not something we would entertain. We are actually, as you asked about sidewalk, I spent a good bit of time today after I got into town riding through the Lowe's and Captain George's and Food Lion down the way, looking at the various permeable surfaces. That's not something that has been part of our portfolio in the past. And so we were trying to figure out what's the best solution, how do they function, what are the maintenance issues, the long-term issues, the ADA issues. And it appears that in looking at the concrete at Lowe's, I would not want that as part of my project. It's just not a nice, smooth surface, and it can't be to function the way it's supposed to be. And I think it easily gets gummed up. But we are working with Wes to try and determine how we can meet the requirements for permeable surfaces. And you will see that as part of the presentation next month. That's really the key for me not being here tonight with a presentation, is we've got to figure that out. And then as for the charging station, that's a very good question, and I'll have to go back and ask about that. and see if there is a way to incorporate it. We've not done that in our centers. We've had tenants get permission from us to incorporate them, particularly our grocers. A lot of our centers are grocer anchored centers, and they've come in and put those charging stations, but we have not. But I'll look into that.
Okay. I think, Robert, you're dealing with two scientists down on this end. Robert's
Not
I'm
really.
in
just
trouble.
retired, and
Not really, not really.
but I think one or both may have just some general comments on stormwater stuff going into our canal system. So, Robert, you want to, or Ed?
I was just going to say, I would really like to see, rather than, the island that is a barrier, the island actually funnel water. You funnel water into the island. It's inverted, and an infiltration system, so that there is the ability for an overfill, perhaps, an overflow that would go into a piping system. But I'd really like to see some kind of infiltration prior to, just collecting all the water and dumping it into the canal, which is, the canal goes directly out to, blue water.
Mhm.
So.
And again, that's like above my level, so
Mhm.
I'll have to ask our engineer about that.
Yeah, I think it's something that will most definitely come up at the town level, staff-wise. What do you think, Wes? I mean, there's notes from the Timmons group on the engineering side, and that was actually a question I had maybe for you, but was you had the fire chief. This is from the Timmons group. Are you aware of this letter, Karen, dated June 15th, 2021 from what's her name? Hamby. Who? Hamby. Yeah.
Kim Hamby.
Yeah. And it just kind of went down with some concerns, the fire chief, the building inspector, code enforcement officer, Wes Haskett. And then when it got to engineering, did Anloff have any input in this particular letter? Because it just starts off with comments rather than concerns and questions.
Yes, sir. Mr. Anloff was involved in the technical review of the preliminary drawings. His comments start in the letter you referenced from Kim. It's on page 2. It's underlined, says Anloff Engineering. Everything from that point forward, those comments, all of those comments are related to comments he provided. I don't know why his comments aren't shown in the letter. It's more of their response to his comments in the letter. But yes, he did review the plans from an engineering perspective,
Okay.
and those were the responses.
Ed?
Going back to stormwater, I see that you're going to use the existing 32 or 36 inch RCP for discharge into the canal. In the past, the town spent a lot of time and effort in trying to figure out what's the water quality issues of the canal system. And that's a straight pipe in there. And I don't think it's, I think at this level, we should not be doing straight pipe into the canal system, which is already, got its questionable water quality standards. And using the existing infrastructure, has anybody, TV'd it to make sure that it's stable and intact? I mean, if you're going to tie into something that's been in the ground for a long time, you sort of want to be sure that it is as good as new pipe, because new pipe is tying into it and new water is going to flow into it. So those are, you're going to use an old pipe. And on top of that, it's going straight into the canal. And I don't think we should be put straight pipe in any runoff directly into the canal. It should have some form of treatment. And I don't know whether there's enough land. I couldn't tell from the drawings if there's enough land to put some kind of infiltration or filtration system, but I don't think we should continue doing the same wrong thing going forward.
There are, I was gonna add, I think they're providing more parking spaces than are actually required. So there may be some square footage to allow for an infiltration type of mechanism. So
And
yeah,
Wes-
that's Kim's,
Excuse me.
Kim Candy. She would know all that.
No.
Same with Jeff.
Wes, what is the current lot coverage situation out there today?
67%.
A tad over 67.
It's a little over 67%. Yes, sir.
There's a lot of them. What's the current standard or limit for commercial property?
It's 60% group developments that provide permeable pavement in an amount that exceeds 5% of the proposed impervious surface areas. They're eligible to receive exception to go up to 67% if the permeable pavement is provided.
And would you, having looked at Linda, Karen, having looked at Lowe's and that permeable surface down there, you're right, it's rough, but I mean, at some point you may have to do a section of it to aid in what we're trying to accomplish with your lot coverage and not having, solid surface everywhere. So
Right.
is there anything in the works for possibly doing the permeable in conjunction with hardscape out there?
So I think where we will land, and don't hold me to this because I've still got to have the discussions with the engineer, with Kim. But I think what we will end up doing is taking most of the newly configured parking lot and using permeable pavers there. That way they are ADA friendly and they will hold up, I think, much better than the concrete or asphalt or turf stone would have. It is important to note that we are not increasing our impervious. We're just simply rearranging. So even though we're adding this parking area here, we are creating green space where there's this concrete mass between the two buildings. So we're trying to be as friendly as we can in ways that are possible to achieve. The comment about parking, I was scared that was mine. I'm sorry. The comment about parking, while we are way over what the town requires, we are on the number with what our leases require. We actually had to go back to two of our tenants and get an amendment to pull that down so that we could be where we are right now, because we weren't compliant. So we don't have any wiggle room on that. While we are using the same pipe that is there and we have not cameraed it, it's functioning. So we're fairly confident that it's fine and there's no plans to modify any of that. So we're not touching it. Hopefully, don't touch it and everything's fine. But we are looking at having to take out a fairly large, I think it's 27,000 square foot space of asphalt and come back with the permeable surface.
So you are going to do a
We-
mixture of each, which is fine. I mean,
Yeah.
Parking lots aren't beautiful as they are, but they need to be functional and do what you intend to do with trying to stay in the allowed square footage. Linda, did you have anything?
Not right now.
John?
No, it doesn't pertain to me, so
Well, you're exactly right. You could still have a comment if you wanted that. I mean, we're all in this together. It wouldn't be out of order, I don't think.
well, I would just have a question. Does either TWQ or Kim have any say on the canals jurisdiction?
We haven't been able to locate a state stormwater permit that was issued by formerly Diener for this project. we have not been able to locate one.
When was that permit issued for stormwater?
I think it was approved and built in 1987, I believe is the date we found.
So is there any regulation out there that says if you do a certain percentage of redevelopment, that you have to go in and get another stormwater permit?
If you disturb more than an acre, you're required to obtain a stormwater permit. But as far as redevelopment, I don't think so. But if they were disturbing more than an acre, then they would have to have state approval. And Mr. McClendon can straighten me on that if this, okay. But that's a question that Mr. Anloff asked early on is, do we have a copy of the NC?
Yeah.
Used to be Diener
Noticed
permit.
that.
And
Couldn't find
no, we could not find one. And we have 3 boxes of files for the marketplace in our office, and I did not find any
Wow.
documents pertaining to that. And I believe, did you say that Kim say, or did you say that y'all reached out to the state and they couldn't find one on record as well?
Kim did, and I went back through all the stuff the seller gave us and couldn't find, I found lots of stuff on septic, but not the stormwater.
Well,
I noticed on the plans that this septic system doesn't include any of the new work that you had done out there. It just says septic system, but your pump station and lift stations and aren't on the plan. But it's, I assume that the, what is it, 18,000 a day? The permit for wastewater?
I think we're approved for 19
19.
something.
yeah, 19.
Yeah.
And how close are you to that?
That's a Michael Strader question. I'll have to get the answer to that, but we were fine, given the fact that we were getting rid of that group of shops and coming back. The type of uses that we're putting back are not high sewer demand uses.
Wes, if the stormwater permit still remains unfound, I mean, is there any sort of, preemptive look at how it's functioning today prior to issuing the permit?
I can discuss it with Joe Anloff again, but because he's, that would be his realm.
Okay.
There's another discharge on the other end of the shopping center, you know, the infiltration on Trinity Trail, Juniper Trail. You know, the water.
There's a retention area that's along Juniper Trail.
Yeah, but that water is released into the canal across the street, you know, and that's a discharge there. And so now you have another, you still go back to 2 discharges, but I'm surprised that there's no upgrade or monitoring, because both of them are basically dead end of the canal system. So there's no mixing or to speak of. And now that you don't have a permit, or can't find a permit or requirements, that's a little bit more concerning.
I would think it would be reasonable to have an engineer certainly look at the situation as it stands right now and what's in place, and not necessarily how we bring it to compliancy without having what was issued before. I mean, that would be a little unfair, but I definitely think moving forward, we need to have some assurances that we're protecting stormwater from getting straight into the canal system here. So, I mean, that's a biggie.
I'll check with Mr. Anloff as to what comments he has about what you all are suggesting tonight as far as discharge into the canals, and see what his thoughts are. And then Karen can respond.
Okay.
That it would be their responsibility to have an engineer demonstrate what you're requesting.
Exactly. And is Timmons your engineering firm in Elizabeth City?
That's right.
Okay. Well, I'm imagining at the next meeting, we'll have someone from Timmons here.
Kim will be here, yes.
Okay. I have a couple of things that, just questions, suggestions. I mean, it's not a deal breaker, but I was looking at the plans with Wes the other day, and my comment is on both sets of plans that we've been provided with, the property adjoining, if at all possible, when you redo these plans, if you've got to do revisions on them, the Taco Bell isn't shown in there. The property with the easement is there. The banks are shown, but they're way out of date with ownership.
Yeah.
If you could possibly have whoever's, doing the slides on the plans, if they could update the adjoining property, it would be a little bit easier for us to assess what's going on with the entire property. But Taco Bell isn't even shown on either set of plans.
So just correct who it states as the owner of the parcel.
Right, and the lot lines are dotted and shown for the most part, but the one I couldn't really get my head around was the Taco Bell site, how much land they have. I mean, I know it's somewhere, but I think it needs to be shown on the plans a little bit more accurately.
It's like the wastewater system. It just shows a blank field.
Mhm.
There's a whole lot of components there that may or may not come into the
The-
plan, but it's part of the property, so it ought to be accurately reflected.
I will say we didn't survey, we don't have rights to survey other people's property.
Right, yeah.
So we wouldn't have been able to pull their building lines or their appurtenances on their property.
Yeah, it would be, you could get it off public. The GIS site here in Dare County would give you a pretty accurate, and I actually went back and looked at that after I talked to you, Wes, and I mean, it's doable. And I mean, it's, like I said, it's not really imperative, but it would sure help out identifying the property and the bounds of the property and what is adjoining
Okay,
the
yeah,
property.
if GIS is sufficient, we can
Yeah.
figure that out.
And then I didn't see anything anywhere about any conditions being placed on matching up the Marshall's facade with the rest of the facade of the marketplace, the original wooden plank facade. I mean, is there anything in the works, or is there any requirement, Wes, that they have to match the facades up?
Do you
No,
really want that?
Karen?
I'm sorry, Wes, you want to answer his question?
No, the town doesn't have any architectural requirements. They're just required to submit drawings and materials to be used with the site plan.
All
So-
right, Karen, your answer.
So, yeah, I actually wouldn't expect anybody to want us to match the rest of what's there. Our plan is to, and of course, the Food Lion's different too. So this will be more like the Food Lion in that it's a nice, clean elevation. Then we plan to take the same paint scheme that Food Lion has and that we have up at the front on the Keller Williams and brush that through the entire center and clean up this yellow, blue stuff that's going on.
Mhm.
Make it a little bit more first-class
Yeah,
looking.
yeah, you'd hate to put a rose between a couple of thorns there, and
Yeah.
I also went through there the other day, and I'm looking around going, I remember I was a young man when a friend of mine did the facade on some of this stuff. It needs some work.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if we can require it as a town. I mean, it's not a safety issue. I don't think it's more aesthetic, but I would certainly hope that your group would take an interest in making it look better.
Well, I would ask that you look at this as maybe phase one of trying to get the center exactly where it needs to be. There's several other things that I've presented to our ownership group as potential upgrades that would help the rest of the center. And we need to get this tenant in and operating and creating a revenue stream. And then we've got plans to fix some other things about the center. But yes, we
Understood.
all see it the way you do.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions for Karen tonight?
I have a question, it's more for Wes probably, and that is, given the stormwater, big question that we can't really answer now, and our desire to have some kind of infiltration or treatment of the stormwater before it goes to the canal system, and pairing that with Alston's need to have an accelerated timeline for this tenant, is it possible to have the infrastructure planned, approved, but perhaps not completed, or the treatment isn't completed or something like that, so that our attempts to improve the stormwater and the parking and all of that don't slow down their ability to lease this space. I think, we want both.
Right. So you're saying that, is there a way to approve, or you all could recommend approval of this site plan without them actually providing the improvements, but they could show you the plans of what can be done?
And have them on track to be done.
Mhm.
I don't know if there's a bond that would be required or something like that that says, we will finish this.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that's even possible from a logistics standpoint of, start to finish. But
It may be possible to put in or recommend to council some kind of conditional approval. But I will have to get back to you on that. There isn't a procedure in place that I'm aware of that would allow for providing a financial guarantee like a bond to say that we would finish, infrastructure. It's not a subdivision, that process is in place, but for this, we don't have anything in place for that, but I believe you all could recommend conditional approval, and that could be one of them, but I will confirm that for you.
And I will say, just sort of circling back on that issue, we've come to this point in the development under the impression, right, wrong, or indifferent, that no stormwater changes were needed. We were surprised to learn late in the game that we were going to have to do the pervious surface, which was a huge budget hit, and we really had to pause and say, how can we handle this? If stormwater changes get thrown on top of this project, it could cripple the project. So
the pervious pavement will go a long way.
that is a
toward achieving
filtration.
those goals.
That's right.
I had a question about the future 6,000 square foot building. In the Timmons group, your question, Wes, was, is the 6,000 square foot expansion going to be constructed at the same time? Their reply was, it will be constructed at the same time. In the narrative from your company, it says at a future time. Are there plans just to build a shell of 6,000 square feet without an occupant, or not build that at all?
So the plan is to build the 6,000 square foot as a cold shell. And hopefully between now and the time we actually put the shovels in the ground, we might be at a place where we change that to a full build out.
Right, but it will be built at the same time?
It will be built,
Okay.
yes.
Anybody? Well, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you
Karen.
so much for your time.
Okay, and we look forward to working with you.
We do as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The next item that we have on new business, item B, is TCA 2106. Wes, could you give us a quick rundown of what we're looking at here?
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is TCA 2106, and this is an amendment of the town subdivision ordinance by amending section 30-96, specifically 30-96F. At the May 17, 2021 Planning Board meeting, you all recommended conditional approval of PSP 2101, which was a preliminary subdivision plat to subdivide the property located at 279 Hillcrest Drive. At the June 1st, 2021 council meeting, Council conditionally approved PSP 2101 and instructed the planning board to recommend a town code amendment that would eliminate the possibility of subdividing property that does not have frontage on a public or private street. At the June 21st planning board meeting, town staff provided and the planning board recommended approval of ZTA-2107 lot access requirements. After further review of ZTA 2107, it was determined that the ZTA would render existing lots with frontage on an easement non-conforming, and the town council took no action on it at their July 6th meeting. At this point, town staff is suggesting TCA 2106, which you have in your packets, and removes the possibility of creating a new lot or lots that only have frontage on an easement.
Thank you. So, looking at the new ZTA, the only change would be on line 14, page 2, lots. Is that correct?
Correct.
And basically, it says all lots shall front upon a public road, or it scratches through access easement and says private street. Double frontage lots should be avoided. And that's the only spot that this ZTA addresses and takes care of the problem, it seems to me.
Yes,
Or
sir.
the perceived problem.
Yes, sir.
John Finelli had a couple of comments. I couldn't find them in my packet, but John, you might want to.
I didn't bring them, but I can sort of remember.
I bet Wes Haskett has.
Yes, sir. Mr. Finelli commented, remove the phrase double fronted lots should be avoided. This is an opinion and serves no purpose. If you want to prohibit them, then do so. Opinions often lead to decisions not supported in the law. That's the first comment. Second comment is with respect to road names in G. Proposed roads, which are obviously in alignment with existing roads, should be given the same name. In assigning new names, the proposed name shall not duplicate an existing name or be phonetically similar to existing names, irrespective of the use of the suffix. And the comment is that it accomplishes the same task, but removes the term should be avoided.
I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, if you want to create an ordinance, it doesn't need to be soft, like it should be shall or not even included at all. I don't think that should be avoided has much meat. Yeah, I agree with John on that. And I would say when this gets cleaned up, we could strike should be avoided, those last three words on line 15.
Should be.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then, let's see. Where do we strike? What were you saying again, John, as far as the road names?
I think Wes has the exact place right.
Should be.
Yeah,
It would-
should be,
it-
yeah,
it
right,
would-
right.
It doesn't
Line
change the
17.
meaning at all.
Yeah.
It just cleans it up a
Yeah.
little bit.
Line 17, just strike through should be.
The suggested revisions were insert the proposed name shall not duplicate an existing name or in front of duplicate where duplication starts, and duplication should be avoided, and in no case should the proposed name all be deleted.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then Wes, do you want to explain what we have accomplished with striking the access easement part of this ordinance?
Currently, the subdivision ordinance allows for the creation of lots that have frontage on an easement.
Right.
And due to the preliminary subdivision plat review earlier this year, 2101, it was requested that we suggest something that would no longer allow that.
Do you see any situations that would cause trouble on, subdividing a lot by having this front a public road or private street?
Not at the moment, no, sir.
Yeah. We were talking about those private streets. Pompano is a situation. I mean, do you think that this would cover subdividing anything on a private street?
Well, the discussion we had was in reference to lots that front easements, because the
Right.
previous text amendment we suggested was an amendment in the zoning ordinance which said that a permit could not be issued to a property or a structure if it does not have 30 feet of frontage and does not front on an easement. So the easement, the lots I was referring to were, I believe it was Purple Martin. There was one off of Hickory. There was one off of, it was either Purple Martin or Mockingbird. I can't recall which one, but those are two lots where their only frontage they have is on an easement that crosses another piece of property.
Right.
They don't have any frontage whatsoever. But in this case, we're addressing the subdivision ordinance and not the zoning ordinance.
Does anybody else have any concerns on how this ZTA moves forward?
No,
Just,
I think, I have found should multiple times in reading different, and I don't understand why the word should is put into any ZTA, because it more or less says, if you want to, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's good to clean up the shoulds whenever we see them.
Okay.
and y'all mentioned one thing about the double frontage lots. They usually don't occur in a subdivision. It's usually when somebody buys the piece of property behind them that's also on another road.
Right.
And I can understand how that could cause problems when, depending what that looks like on the other road.
Yeah.
So, but that's something I think for a different ordinance, if you want to address it, where, you need vegetation or you need something if it becomes an issue.
I think this ETA kind of cuts to the meat of what we're trying to achieve with subdividing a large parcel and an easement having to be granted to comply. So we're letting one under the fence the way it stands right now, but hopefully this is the only one that will go forward. So,
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I may say, double frontage lots, I mean, that would also be a corner street or a corner lot. I mean, that would prohibit that. In addition, I guess another thought just occurred to me is that we could consider not putting in private street and just leave that out. Therefore, it would only read, all lots shall front upon a public road.
why was private street put in there then?
Because we do currently have properties that front a private street, but this is the subdivision ordinance, so it wouldn't have any effect on it. It would be moving forward. That just means that you wouldn't be able to have any lots that front a private street, but it's not in there currently.
Right.
So it's a possibility that we could leave that part of it out.
Where did the suggestion of private street come from?
I put it in, but I'm rethinking it and thinking it might, after John brought up the point about double frontage lots and
Well, I mean, it was interjected into the ordinance, the private street, and we're striking access easement out of the ordinance. So,
Correct.
I mean, that makes, I would be okay with that, I think. Anybody have any issue with
What's the difference?
not including private street?
What's the difference in a private street and a public street?
Public street is accessible by the public. It's maintained by either the town or, in our case, the town, or NC 12, maintained by the state. Private street maintenance is responsible by the property owner or a homeowners association.
Does the town require any infrastructure differences between a private street and a public street?
Water, sewer, all that still applies, whether it's public or private. I'm pretty sure.
Trash collection goes around.
Yes.
Or backs in, or however they get in there.
Okay.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to simply strike access easement as it's written, and also not include private street, and strike should be avoided in the lots. And then on the road names, how it was read. And you may want to read that again, Wes, how the road names will check out.
What would be inserted is the proposed name shall not duplicate an existing name, or, and then to be deleted, the words duplication should be avoided, and in no case should the proposed name.
Right. Okay. So those two fixes for this CTA to move it forward. Could I get a motion?
Yeah, I'll motion to what was just discussed. We'll delete private street, delete access easement, double fronted lots should be avoided. And on G, 16G, and line 17, the word should. And are we going to put shall not? Or just delete should be given the same name? Shall not, shall be given the same name.
You referring to lots or road names?
Road names on
Yeah,
that one.
the suggestion is the proposed name shall not.
Shall not be given the same name. That's
Yeah.
what I had written down, and then
Right.
okay, shall not. So that's my motion.
I'll second that. Any discussion? None seen. I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor of Tony's motion and my second, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None seen. Carries. All right. Under new business, item C is discussion of potential amendments to section 36-202 D6, maximum allowable lot coverage. Wes, you want to give us a brief overview of why we're looking at this?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Earlier this year, the town council instructed town staff to bring valuable elements of the town code update to the planning board and subsequently to the town council for consideration. One part of this that we noted was in the town attorney's comments with respect to the town's current lot coverage requirement. The code right in the code update brought forth the lot coverage as it applies to oceanfront property owners in the RS, or oceanfront properties in the RS1 single-family residential district, which states that in the case of an oceanfront lot, only that area landward of the first line of stable natural vegetation as defined by CAMA shall be used for calculating lot coverage. His comment on that was that it is inconsistent with North Carolina General Statute 77-20 B and C, and should be updated to the line being the mean high water mark rather than the first line of stable natural vegetation. So we are bringing this to you all for discussion and consideration to see what your thoughts were about that. You all received a copy of the statute in your packet as well as the current language. And just so everyone is aware, CAMA defines or explains the first line of stable natural vegetation as the line that represents the boundary between the normal dry sand beach, which is subject to constant flux due to waves, tides, storms, and wind, and the more stable upland areas. The vegetation line is generally located at or immediately oceanward of the seaward toe of the frontal dune or erosion escarpment. And I'll just show you, for example, on GIS, I'll just pick a random lot. We'll choose this one, 82 Ocean Boulevard. You can see that the outline in red shows that the boundary goes well towards the mean high water mark. But the way our zoning ordinance is worded currently, the lot coverage is actually measured from the first line of stable natural vegetation, which would be at about this point right here where I'm moving the cursor. So based on the town attorney's comment, concerned that there may be risk in with the town applying this requirement the way it's worded, we were bringing it forward for planning board's discussion.
Okay, thank you. Well, the way the ordinance reads currently is highlighted in yellow in your packet, which says, in the case of an oceanfront lot, only that area landward of the first line of stable natural vegetation, as defined by CAMA, shall be used for calculating lot coverage. And I think, well, I'll give you what transpired here with this note from David Owens that you were sent today. I asked David, who is my first cousin, to look over this. He used to be the statewide director of CAMA, and he wrote part of this 77-20. So I feel like he's fairly astute at giving his opinion on, what we probably need to do to clarify this regulation so that it is in compliance with the state statute 77-20. And his suggestions are before you. I haven't really talked to him since he sent these over to me yesterday. He's coming back from Asheville, so I didn't want to bother him. But he feels very confident that his suggested language could be crafted slightly by Wes or town attorney to be used in a ZTA that would address this particular situation. And he's basically saying that it would not behoove us to maybe use the term lot and go more towards a different language moving forward. But the total, he's saying that the rule could possibly be phrased something like, if you're looking at the middle of what he sent, the total impervious surface coverage shall not exceed 30% of the potential building area of any lot of record. So I think what I've gathered out of this is that we're basically doing the same thing that this regulation has always kind of shot for, using the area from the first line of stable vegetation back landward for determining lot coverage. His suggestion is to word it how he has it in number 1 of his 3 suggestions. And I think we'd be in the clear to comply with the state statute at that point. So Wes, you have anything to add to trying to get this back into compliance with the state statute and basically do the same thing that has been done for quite a few years, I'm sure.
We can certainly use that guidance and work on a zoning text amendment to that effect.
Anybody have any concerns about moving Mr. Owens' language forward for a ZTA to be, I'm assuming that you'll come back with us at next meeting with a,
Possibly, we'll try.
okay.
We'll see.
Anybody have any concerns with recommending Mr. Owens' language?
I just have a question.
Yeah.
What's highlighted in yellow is what is in the current ordinance.
Right.
How is that not how does that not meet the standard that Mr. Owens just rephrased?
I think, Wes, you
Where
might
have
want-
where have there been confusions in that language? Are there?
Mr. Owens is saying that what we have in place will work and it has
It just
worked
needs to
and
be
can
worded.
continue to work. But I think he's suggesting that it be reworded to not reference the word lot. You would be using, or lot coverage, you would be referring to something different rather than total impervious surface or potential building area. So as to not run afoul, I guess is the way to put it, with the language in the statute in 77-20.
Yeah,
But
It's basically, we're not changing anyone's
no,
lot coverage ability or anything like that. We're just rephrasing it to comply
we
with the
would be,
state.
we would be clear, no, it would be more of a clarification
Okay.
if we were to move forward with what Mr. Owens is suggesting. We're clarifying that we are not using the definition of lot or the seaward boundary as established in 77-20.
yes, the highlighted yellow specifically says, what it says. He's saying that the town can use the vegetation line for regulatory purposes.
Right.
Just as Camet has always done it, but we can use it for regulatory purposes. But it says in paragraph 3, you just need to be very clear in the ordinance that you are not saying that the area between mean high water and the vegetation line is not part of the lot, but rather you are saying that the portion of the lot is not included in the calculation of the allowed amount of impervious surface. So,
That's what
Yeah,
I was
I mean,
confused about. Are we changing something? It
no,
didn't sound like we are.
we're not
Okay,
changing.
Yeah, the
anything.
measuring point would remain the same.
Right.
And the percentage would remain the same.
Anybody else?
No, I think it's clear.
Hey, that term potential building area, though, that's not a good term because it
Well-
almost excludes the setback areas.
Right. He said farther up that gross building area or potential building area, I would think that Wes could pick another name. I don't know.
But again, that seems to define what's within the building lines rather than,
Well, maybe gross would be a different, gross building area would be a better way. I would leave that to Wes and Ben Gallup, I think, to figure out, what word needs to go in there. David specifically said, substitute something besides lot. So. Okay, well, I would entertain a motion to accept Mr. Owens' suggestion and move it forward for staff to work on a ZTA that would address this situation.
I'll make a motion that we send this forward and use Mr. Owen's suggestion and maybe some wordsmithing in it, perhaps.
Sure.
And move it forward and do, correct what I think. It's fine, except it's not clear.
Right.
So clarifying
Exactly.
that aspect of the ZTA.
I'll second.
Second, Linda? Okay, thank you. Any discussion? None seen. I will ask for a vote. All in favor of Tony's motion, seconded by Linda. Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None seen. Okay.
That's Ryan, isn't it?
We're circling back around for public comment number 2. Wes, anybody signed up?
Not that I'm aware of, Mr. Chairperson. But if you want to open the floor, there may be someone who wants to comment.
Anybody have anything to say? I mean, you're welcome to come up. We won't even hold you to 3 minutes. We're trying. Anybody? Okay. Well, I talked to Tony before we came to order, and I'm going to ask him at this planning board member comments section. Tony volunteered graciously to go before the town council at our direction last meeting and speak to a thorny issue called trash and recycling receptacles and problems thereof. So, Tony, if you can kind of give everybody a thumbnail sketch of.
Yeah, quickly, I reviewed chapter 26 in the municipal code, and I considered it highly out of date. So I went, and the town council was very amenable to what I said. They didn't throw anything at me, so I guess they thought it was okay. And what I proposed is, right now, as we have traffic issues here, and because we have many more tourists coming. Well, tourists equal trash. So as the tourists have increased, so has their trash problems. In reviewing the trash and recycling cans, my block alone, which I only have 10 houses on my block, I had 8 different colored cans, labeled cans. The tourists come, and when they go to put things out, there's kind of confusion, I think, with a lot of them. For instance, the green can is for trash, and the brown can is for recycling, which is actually it's not intuitive whatsoever. So trash gets put out, it's left out, things aren't picked up. So what we're trying to work out is a system to label all the cans or the trash receptacles in Southern Shores, where either the company provides labels or we get stencils and they're labeled themselves, so we actually see what is trash and what is recycling. In reviewing that, the word "should" came up so many times in that I was reading it, and that's why when you said, it's like, my God, should again? They would have things like, you should not leave trash not in the cans on the street. You shouldn't. It doesn't say don't leave trash laying on the street. It says you shouldn't do that. Well, do you think the tourists, so there's a variety of things. The other thing in that same chapter, it says recycling cans are obtained by calling Southern Shores town. That hasn't been done for years. That hasn't been done. So there was a lot of issues in that chapter, and town council gave us the go-ahead to go and review that chapter and try to update it, and also to make the town cleaner. make it look nicer. I personally think some of these rental companies should be responsible to bring things back. And if they don't, let's put a little bit of teeth into things that they leave out. For instance, they'll leave chairs out for weeks, et cetera. So anyway, I proposed this to town council. They agreed for us to look into it. And once things slow down up here, I have more yellow in that chapter than I do regular writing. So we're going to move forward with it as soon as there's time for the planning board. I'm not going to press this month or next month because we had this current going on over in the marketplace, which takes a lot of time also. And that really should take a lot of attention. But I think this is something that we have to look forward to do this.
Thanks for doing that, Tony. And to dovetail in with that, I think at some point, you and I should meet with Mr. Haskett and Public Works and whoever else wants to come to this meeting, town council, Mr. Ogburn, you're all invited, but we got a problem here, folks, and it is unsightly garbage. I can't tell you how many bags of trash I saw outside of receptacles today. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And we do need to put some teeth in it from the town perspective. The heck with, just going willy-nilly and throwing it on the side of the road.
Who decides how many containers are?
It's in the ordinance.
It's in the
but it
ordinance.
needs to be mopped up and cleaned up.
The ordinance says if you're I believe, I'm doing this from memory, which isn't real good anymore, but for 4 bedrooms, you need, for rental property, you need 1 recycling can and 1 can. Above 5 bedrooms, guess how many recycling cans you need? 1. So it's the exact same amount. Now, you more trash cans, yes, 2, I think it is. I'm not sure of the exact number. So it has to be updated, which,
Sure. My suggestion is, with the board's approval, that at some point, you're right, we need to concentrate on bigger stuff for this season. We're not going to fix it this season, but we certainly need to get together as a board and make some suggestions for a possible rewrite of the waste ordinance, chapter 26. So, yeah. Anybody else have any comments? John? Yeah, Robert? Wes, announcements?
Yes, sir. The next meeting is scheduled for August 16th. And I'll be sending an email out to y'all soon about some potential upcoming training. Just received, I saw a notice on the listserv from the School of Government about hosting some virtual or 2 virtual workshops. It'll be actually 2 legislative workshops and then 2 quasi-judicial procedures workshops. So I'll be sending y'all some the dates and times to see what works best for everyone. I think it would be good to take advantage of what they're offering and participate in these online workshops that the school of government's going to be hosting.
Do you have the expectation that we will be looking at this in greater depth, Aston Properties? I mean, what?
The marketplace site plan application. It's Karen had indicated earlier, she used the terms next month. So the ball is mostly in their court. So we'll try to accommodate whatever as soon as they'd like.
I have a question, I guess, for the planning board. Would the planning board be willing to meet more often or at a different type of schedule? Because we know that Aston's under a thing, so if they have a response, I don't think we should require that they wait until August the 16th. If we're willing to meet sooner, we could certainly do that.
You all could schedule a special meeting. I believe it's 48 hours in advance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. And then possibly the next scheduled meeting, if they're ready to dig in a lot deeper, we can meet earlier in the afternoon, say 4:30, if that would work. Or even earlier, I don't know, 4 o'clock, and have a
Well,
little
if-
recess.
If everything's in line, then if Karen's able to.
Yeah, we'll stay tuned on that,
Yes, sir. I'll keep y'all posted.
but that's a good suggestion. I mean, we want to work with these folks. I mean, you know, everybody lives here and we all shop over there at some point during the week, and it needs some help, and we're willing to help you, help us. All right, well, can I get a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'm going to second it, and it's adjourned. Thank y'all. I didn't need to vote. We didn't need to vote.
I've never heard anybody say no.
Eat and get it right.
Yeah, that's right.
Andy,
That word,
Suspicious.
I've been reading these ordinances.
you need to call him tomorrow.